From Dodger Stadium to Oracle Park and all points in between.
Yeah.
It's the John Phillips Show.
And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's across the glass.
John, in Fresno, a underpass for the high-speed rail finally completed construction. This project was scheduled to take 2 years. It's finally done 8 years later.
That sounds like government ingenuity.
That's one underpass.
How long do you think it would take the old Soviet Union to get it done?
Let me just remind everyone, the country of Japan finished their first high-speed rail line in 1965.
Who was it who said, yeah, maybe so, but they had an advantage? They got bombed.
I don't know who said that.
800-222-5222 is telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the ABC News legal analyst and co-host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast, which you can download wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Royal Oaks. Royal, welcome.
Hey, pleasure to be here, John. Yeah, I just wanted to react quickly to your story. I'm flashing back to, remember the big earthquake in the 90s and the Santa Monica Freeway collapsed. As I recall, Governor Wilson came up with this idea to the contractors: look, you finish a day early, we'll give you $100,000. You finish a day late, we take $100,000 away. And I think it worked great. Why can't we do that now? You think Newsom's even thought about that?
Well, at this point, I don't even think Newsom thinks that the high-speed rail is going to be completed. And who knows how much it's going to cost. And whatever it's going to cost, you better figure that in bananas, because apes will be controlling the world by the time we actually get to ride that thing.
Oh, is that the Statue of Liberty? Oh, yeah, you're right.
Okay, Royal, let's go ahead and go through a bunch of legal topics in the news this week, starting with the brand new U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, former California Assemblyman Bill Asaley, who was not approved by the Senate, so he didn't get a completed nomination that went through the process, but Donald Trump put him in that office nonetheless on a temporary basis. Well, that temporary basis came and went. And now the Trump administration is trying to maneuver to keep Asaley on as LA's top federal prosecutor by putting him there again on another temporary basis. What do we know about what's going on there?
It's a lot of inside baseball, John. I mean, as you say, this is an important job. Top prosecutor in a big city like Los Angeles, that's a pretty huge thing. And I think the Democrats are very worried that this guy is seen by them as a partisan critic. You know, he was all over the progressive DA, George Gascon. He's kind of a rising Republican star. And as we've seen in the past, you know, U.S. attorneys like a platform. Rudy Giuliani was the big guy going after the crooks and the mafia guys. He became the mayor and then a presidential contender because of that launching pad. So it is a big deal. So in general, the U.S. attorneys have to be confirmed by the Senate, like so many other federal appointees. But if they don't, you can make him an acting U.S. attorney, an interim attorney for a little time. And that's what Donald Trump did, because the Democrats were able to stop him. And now there's another loophole in the federal law that Trump is trying to exploit. So he's kind of doubling down on the loopholes is the problem for the Trump administration. And the risk he faces is that somebody will go to court, and they've sued Trump hundreds of times, and say, hey, Your Honor, look what Donald Trump is doing. He's really trying to cheat. You know, the rules are the rules. You got to have the Senate approval. And, you know, you can get a few months here or there if there's an emergency. But so Donald Trump, he's not out of the woods yet just because he's found a way to get a few more months. He could be shut down by the courts.
And Bill Asaley has really found a way to offend the ruling class of Democrats in California, because we know we're in a one-party state here, so if the Democratic Party is fine with something, it's okay. Well, one of the things that we know exists here in California is we know that the dollars that we're spending combating homelessness are not working. And we know that many of the organizations that exist to service the homeless are doing quite well. Their administrative costs are through the roof. The government is giving them a lot of money, and they are doing just fine, even though the number of people living on the streets is increasing and not decreasing. He said when he took over in that office that his top priority was to look at all of the money that's being spent on homeless services and resulting in more homeless people on the streets and find out if there's any fraud or graft going on there and prosecuting it if there is. The moment he said that, the Democrats went ballistic, saying, no, we don't want you looking over there. Go deal with something else. Since then, he's also been quite aggressive at going after people who were assaulting ICE officers or destroying federal property during all the protests and rioting that went on after the ICE raids began in California. So he seems to be able to pick at just about every Democratic scab that's going on right now here in the Golden State.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you really put your finger on it. You know, the homeless industrial complex, it's just a real industry. But it's so tragic. I mean, we've all seen it with our own eyes. People, staggering around the streets. And, a lot of them, it's mental illness or it's addiction of one kind or another. But they basically don't have lives. And instead of just throwing money down a rat hole, we're going to build more units and so on. Why? They could live in the Taj Mahal, but if they still have their addiction, then the Taj Mahal is soon going to be crumbling because everything went up the guy's nose. So they need help to get their lives back, but the Democrats are not permitting that. So you're right. There's a real sensitive political football here, and the politics is the essence of the problem. Now you say, well, the Republicans, they run the House and the Senate and the president, so why can't they get this guy in? We have this system where if the Democrat senators from a state, California, say to Trump, hey, with all due respect, Mr. President, we don't want you to appoint this guy as U.S. attorney, then the U.S. Senate is so devoted to this notion of allowing the local senators to be able to veto judges and U.S. attorneys that Trump, in spite of the Republican lead, has not been able to get the guy through. And now people are saying not only is it a political deal, but 100 former judges of saying, you're eroding the Senate's constitutional role and the independence of the judiciary. So they're fighting the battle on a bunch of fronts.
Well, it's one thing if you have respect for the senators. It's another thing if they're Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is a guy, of course, who is under fire right now because of residency issues and potential bank fraud, where he said on banking forms that his home in Maryland was his primary residence, when in fact you have to be a resident of the state of California to represent us in the United States Congress. But if he put that down on the banking forms to get the better interest rate for his home, then he's either lying to us or lying to them. And with a guy with those kind of ethics, I don't know why you would listen to him at all if he wants to weigh in on who should be the U.S. attorney for the Central District of California.
You're right. I mean, this system of deferring to the senators, it's 100 year old. It's called a blue slip system. They literally have a stack of pieces of blue paper in the Senate, and if a senator he wants to veto the idea of a judge, he fills it out on the paper and sends it to the White House. But yeah, I mean, the Senate used to be, the giants roamed there, Daniel Webster and, Lyndon Johnson and Robert Taft. And now, some pretty lame people, you mentioned two of them. So yeah, maybe the system's going to change and there won't be as much deference to what the local senators want.
We're speaking with ABC News legal analyst Royal Oakes. Royal, California Governor Gavin Newsom now says he's considering a November 4th special election to counteract the state of Texas's proposed redistricting. He wants to redraw the lines in California for the congressional seats, not for the state legislative seats, just for the congressional seats, in order to give Democrats more of an advantage in elections for seats in the House of Representatives here in California. The problem that he has is that in California, we have an independent, and I throw that in quotes, commission who draws up the lines that voters approved at the ballot box. Would it be possible for Gavin Newsom to scrap that map and to come up with a new one? Or what kind of process are we looking at here to try to redraw those lines?
he can get it done, and it's just so convoluted. But I mean, stepping back, this is just hugely important. Every 10 years or so, we have the census, of course, and so every decade we redraw the maps because you want every congressperson to have about the same number of constituents. And after 10 years, a lot of people left some counties and arrived at others. So what's happened now is that Texas has made some changes to the drawing of their maps that could result in 5 more Republicans being in the House, since so many people moved to Texas and they're a pretty red state. So Newsom is saying, we got to make up for that. So what he's done now is that he's saying, look, to the legislature, I want you guys in the Assembly and the Senate to approve a constitutional amendment to change the California law to allow us to redraw the maps now with a different system so we can fight back against Texas, basically. Now, he needs a 2/3 vote in both the Assembly and the Senate to get this constitutional amendment rolling. And he probably can get it because he's got about 3/4 Democrats in both houses. But it's not a guarantee because there are a lot of kind of centrist Democrats from the Central Valley and so on. But that's step one. Step two, if he gets the legislature to go along, then he wants a special election on November 4th this year. That'll cost a pretty penny. And we would be asking voters to say yes to the Newsom plan to change the legislation map, to change the whole gerrymandering thing about where the different districts are. So that's what he's facing. He can do it, but he's first got to get that 2/3 vote with his pals in both halves of the legislature, and then he's got to get a simple majority from the voters in November to go along.
I've talked to people who served on that commission, that independent commission, and one of the Republicans I talked to who served on it said that the quote-unquote independents on the commission were more hard partisan Democrats than the Democrats on the commission. You could be an independent because you're more left-wing than the Democratic Party, and because of that, you don't identify as a Democrat, which was the case for the makeup of this commission. The way I look at the map, we pretty much already have a Democratic gerrymander, specifically for certain ethnic groups. They want certain ethnic groups to represent certain seats in certain geographic parts of the state. When you look at the map of congressional districts in California, it doesn't look to me like there's a whole lot of meat left on the bone. Maybe you can draw out 1, 2, 3 Republicans, but there were a number of seats, Democratic-held seats in the state, where Kamala Harris got between 50 and 55% of the vote, meaning those seats, if they're not competitive in the next cycle, could be competitive in future cycles, and certainly are not seats that the Democrats want to pull Democrats away from to put them in Republican seats to make those seats more competitive, because if you do that, you're spreading yourself way too thin. What do you make of the map as it stands right now, and do you think the Democrats could get real aggressive if they wanted to?
Yeah, I'm sure they could. I mean, again, as you said, we're living in a one-party state, and even though they're called an independent commission, it's not really independent. But as you also said, there's not a whole lot of room. We don't have quite the opportunity, the bandwidth to change a lot of seats the way Texas apparently does. But they're going to squeeze out everyone they can, and it's important because as everybody knows, California is basically irrelevant in a presidential election. Let's say we got 40 million people. The Democrat can win 39 million to 1 million, and it doesn't really help much because under the Electoral College system, they're going to get all of our Electoral College votes anyway, whether they win by 51% or 99%. So in a way, who cares? But when it comes to how many Republican Congress people and how many Democrat members of the House there are, that is a big deal because they go back to Washington and they make their votes. And as we know from the last several years, it's really thin, the margins. I mean, the Republicans control the House by 220 to 215 or something tiny like that. So yeah, every single vote counts here and in all the other states.
If they actually follow through with this, wouldn't that be a nightmare for their members? Because if you look at the projected census coming up in 2030, California is going to lose between 3 and 5 congressional seats because we're hemorrhaging our population, and other states like Texas and Florida are growing. If we gerrymander up the lines midway through the decade, and then we have another census and we lose 5 seats or 3 seats or 4 seats or whatever, you're going to have a lot of Democrats who are going to lose their job or be forced to go in member-on-member races.
No, you're right, and be careful what you wish for, because you're talking about a situation where basically the Democrats have it all their way in California. They can basically do anything they want. Surprising they haven't just thrown everything under the bus, Prop 13 and so on. But you're right. If they mess this up and it doesn't work out just the way they want, you could be looking at a shrinking pie, and they have a smaller chunk of that shrunken pie.
We're speaking with Royal Oakes, co-host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast, which you can download wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Royal, there was an amusement park in Saudi Arabia that snapped that was filled with people. It was dramatic video where you see this ride that you'd see at any county fair or amusement park here in the state of California that was going way up into the air, and then it just snapped off and they fell to the ground. Apparently 23 people were injured, some seriously, but nobody died. If you're on an amusement park ride and it snaps like that in Saudi Arabia, I would imagine you're probably out of luck. But if that were to happen to you here in the state of California, then maybe your kids' don't have to work.
Yes, that's true. It's pretty weird over there. They obviously have their own special legal system. It's based on Sharia law, so I'd be surprised if they even let women sue at all. But they don't have jury trials over there. There's basically no pain and suffering damages. So if you're an American and you're injured over there, good luck trying to get anything over there. But let's say that the amusement park ride or some chunk of it was made or manufactured or installed by a company outside of Saudi Arabia, an American company, for example, then boom, now you probably have a right to go to an American court and say, I know you don't get too many Saudi Arabian lawsuits, but hear me out. It was, X company based in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and so I'd like to sue them because they caused the situation. So you might have the opportunity to do that. Plus, European countries might have manufactured stuff. They allow personal injury claims. They've got caps that are stricter than the United States stuff. But the real deal would be to somehow figure out how to sue in America, where you can have a contingency fee deal. You don't have to pay a dime unless you win. You get to the jury is going to be very sympathetic to you, maybe not real fond of Sharia law. So the plaintiff-friendly jurisdiction is what you want.
I wonder what the carny ride operators in Saudi Arabia look like. I wonder if they're missing limbs and have tons of tattoos and ponytails, too.
I bet they're exactly like the ones in Peoria, Illinois.
Royal, what's coming up on the next Too Many Lawyers podcast?
Oh, we're going to talk about a couple of things. First, the Wallace Annenberg situation. This poor lady just died recently, and her three kids are saying that the folks who were in charge of her, a couple of sisters who had a relationship with her, basically killed her. That's what they're alleging. And so they want to make sure there's an autopsy. We're also going to talk about the Menendez brothers. There's a 2-day hearing coming up this month, August 21, 22. The judge might just say, or the parole board might say, 35 years is enough for these guys under all the circumstances.
All of this coming up on the next Too Many Lawyers podcast, which you can download wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Royal Oakes, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show a half hour away, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app.
And he said absolutely.
iHeart.
Absolutely.
Spotify.
Absolutely.
Search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, and download all the episodes. Shangy likes that.
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And right now, it is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She knows more about the city of Las Vegas than all of the members of the Blue Man Group combined. Host of the Heidi Harris Show, Heidi Harris.
Hello, my friend. Always great to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by. And we always love talking to you about all things Las Vegas, all things Nevada. But this time, unfortunately, it's not a good story because Las Vegas is now experiencing tourism troubles, where their troubles, which we'd been seeing earlier in the year, continued through the month of June, with estimates showing the number of visitors now down 11.3% compared to June of last year. This according to reports that were released earlier this week. That number might actually be even worse than what was printed in the paper because convention tourism is actually up. So the number of people who are going to Las Vegas with the intent of gambling is actually probably higher than 11%. What do you make of this dip in tourism, and do you think this is something that is temporary or if it's here to stay?
Well, let me start with the convention business. There used to be a big joke. Remember the convention they used to call Comdex back in the day, the CES? They used to joke and say that the conventioners would come to Vegas with a $20 bill and a clean shirt and not change either one. Okay, so it depends. Not making that up. So it depends on the convention. Some conventioneers gamble. Some conventioneers do not. A lot of them go to the strip bars, so those do well. But whether these people hit the tables or not, that depends on the convention. It's very interesting how that works. But I don't want to be too negative. Up there on the Boulder Strip, Boulder Highway there, it's up 19%, John. It's just that people aren't going anywhere near the Strip. That's what they're not doing because valet parking is $50. Remember when you could park your car for nothing and give a valet a nice tip and feel good about yourself? $50 at some of these hotels now to valet your car. Can you believe that?
It's funny. When my grandparents used to go to Las Vegas all the time to gamble, they stayed at the Stardust back when the Stardust was there. And even when they used to go, it was kind of an old, tired hotel. And I remember having this conversation with them. They have all of these new hotels. Why is it, of all of them that you have to choose from, you pick the Stardust? And the answer was, we can park right up next to the door. It's easy access. We know everyone, and that's worth something. And the older I get, the more I think about that conversation and think, that's exactly right. And now when you go to Las Vegas and you go to some of these big, beautiful hotels, and the rooms are phenomenal, and the restaurants are fantastic, and they're clean, and they're big, and they have all the glitz and the glamour and the lights and the sounds and everything that you would expect to see in one of these Las Vegas hotels. But the one thing that has gotten worse over time is parking. It takes forever to get in. It takes forever to get out. They charge you for parking. All of the escalators are always broken. It doesn't matter which one you go to. It's the land of broken escalators. I cannot for the life of me figure out how they haven't been able to fix the parking situation.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then to charge people, especially locals, I'm not going anywhere near there, the Strip. I'm not going to put my driver's license in a scanner so I can park as a local for an hour or two. Sometimes they'll throw you a crumb and let you do that. No. I'm not giving them that information. But it's so much money to park. It's expensive for a drink. I mean, a friend of mine was in town and was out at the pool and paying like $35. We're talking a gin and tonic, not even something with an umbrella in it. All right, $35 for a drink. This is why people are just disgusted because Vegas used to be a value destination in the minds of most people. And even when they left Vegas and they had no money in their pockets on the plane, they'd be thrilled because they had a great time. We used to be experts at fleecing you and leaving you with a smile on your face, because we get you one way or the other. Now they get you before you even get out to the tables. And the lines to check in, you've seen that in some places. They can take you an hour or more to check in at some of these hotels. Customer service is gone. And that's a big reason people are disgusted with it.
It is, and everything is expensive across the board. If you want to get a cup of coffee at a hotel on the Strip, that could cost you $10, $11, $12 for a cup of coffee. Yeah. If you want to go to the coffee shop and get some eggs and bacon in the morning, that's a $35 adventure. It's not like it used to be. The showrooms, now I will say this, they used to comp all the tickets. If you were gambling at the hotel, they'd give you tickets to the showroom. They don't do that quite as much anymore. It's all a point-based system where you can cash in your points for tickets to go to the show if you want to, and that's a whole situation. But I will say this. The quality of shows that you guys are putting on, you've really upped your game in recent years, where it doesn't matter what hotel you're looking at. There is some kind of headliner who could be winning a Grammy Award on any given year. I know the Sphere is a new facility that you guys have that is just a phenomenal place to go see a concert. I was just there and saw a concert there, and just the facility itself blows you away.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. The Sphere is beautiful on the inside. It's beautiful on the outside. And the entertainment is amazing here. And that's one thing that we have over most other places in the world. The ticket prices, at what point do people max out their credit cards? Because it is a fortune to go to any of these shows anymore. It used to be you could go to a dinner show and it wasn't ridiculous. And now, yes, we have the best people in the world coming to town to entertain, but who can afford to go to these shows? I mean, eventually they're just going to run out of customers, especially as the economy, gets worse and tighter for a lot of people in some ways.
The table minimums have also jumped dramatically. When I was there for dinner with some friends and some work things, a friend of mine wanted to play blackjack after the dinner, and I said, okay, let's go ahead and play blackjack. And he said, I play $25 a hand. Is that okay? Typically, I play $15. I said, $25 a hand, sure, we'll do it. Might as well. We're here. It's a nice hotel. It's the Strip. The only tables we could find were $100 a hand minimum.
Wow.
That's what they had at the hotel.
And now, listen, I understand they want some exclusivity. I get it. But this is why people feel priced out. Once again, the value destination that Vegas used to be, even when people dropped the thousands at the tables, they still felt like they had a good time and they didn't get ripped off. I was just told recently by somebody who was a cocktail waitress, that I used to do this years ago, but it's been a while since I've done it. But she was saying that you have to wait 20 minutes before you can give somebody another drink. Did you even know that? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, they have the automatic drink things in the back, the machines that make the drinks, and you can only bring them a drink every 20 minutes. I mean, what if somebody's tipping really well? You got to wait 20 minutes? I mean, that makes no sense to me at all.
It seems like they've lost track of what made them popular. And that's always dangerous. That is always – look at what happened to late night TV. Late night TV was a great place to have celebrities on to promote a movie or promote a new album that's coming out or promote a comedy show that's going around the country. And they celebrated Hollywood. They just kind of had fun with things. And then it turned into MSNBC programming where they beat you over the back of the head with a baseball bat over politics. And lo and behold, look at what happened. The public started tuning out, and now the shows are being canceled. And late night TV just fundamentally lost track of what the product was and what they were supposed to deliver. And now they're crying because they're losing what they have. It seems like Las Vegas is kind of going through a similar situation right now, where they have just lost track of their identity, and they either need to find it or they're going to end up like Stephen Colbert.
Can we just talk about him for a second? I've never heard such whining in my life, John. Those of us in radio know that we get 5 minutes notice. He has, a year and a half notice on this contract that's going to end? I've never seen anything like it. And there was somebody else recently, I can't remember who it was, who was whining and worried he was going to, what he's going to do if he lost his late night show. I didn't even know the guy was still on. But the bottom line, what a bunch of babies. Their whole identities are wrapped up in this show. Crying, wouldn't last a week in radio because this is normal for us.
Well, what is crazy to me is the narcissism, because if you are the host of a late night show on CBS, your job is to promote other CBS properties. If CSI has CSI Nome, Alaska, and they're promoting that particular program, you have to have those actors on to make sure that show gets good ratings. And it's like he just stopped doing the actual job that he was supposed to do and said, no, I'm very aggressively left-wing, and this show is going to be an aggressively left-wing show, and that's the way it's going to be, and I'm the host, and I decide. Well, guess what? Right. It's their candy store. You don't decide.
Yep. Well, it's crazy. Back in the day, you and I, grew up with Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, when entertainment, was great at night, and some of the best people and entertainment were on late night TV. People watched it before they fell asleep, not to get aggravated before they fall asleep, but to actually have a few laughs, enjoy some entertainment, go to bed. Jay Leno did not beat your head in with politics. Johnny Carson did not beat your head in with politics. And they made jokes about both sides, but the way they handled it was so very different. And I guess these late night guys don't get it. They don't understand what the gig is, I suppose.
Is that something that's just going on late night TV? Or if you go to a comedy club in Las Vegas, which has a mix of middle America and people from all over the globe coming to Las Vegas to have a good time, if you go to a comedy show in Las Vegas, do they beat you over the head with politics, or do they try to keep it like the old Jay Leno and Johnny Carson days?
Well, I think it depends on who it is. I mean, I went to see Bette Midler when she was here a few years back, and I love her, and I don't care what her politics are. I love her. She's an amazing entertainer. Okay, I can put that aside. I don't care. Just got a couple of digs in about Trump, but that's okay. The rest of the show was great. Some of them do, some of them don't, but a lot of it's gotten very politically correct. You know, the days of people like Don Rickles making fun of everybody are pretty much over. I talked to one guy, he's a local comedian, not well known, but he goes, I'm a fat guy and I can't even make fat jokes. Everybody's so sensitive now. So comedy is very dicey. People are very concerned about offending somebody in the audience, and that wasn't how people like Rickles were. That's not how they made their money.
I hate that. Lisa Lampanelli is one of the most talented comedians out there. And I had this conversation with her. She basically said if she continued doing the act that she did, she would be canceled and would not be able to make a living. So she consciously decided to go in a different direction and do a different thing. And to me, that's sad because she was the modern day Don Rickles with the act that she did. And I hate the fact that the next generation is being denied that because, oh my God, it was screamingly funny.
Well, absolutely. I mean, funny is funny, and funny doesn't have to be gynecological. I don't like it when they get so filthy. It's just like, really, you're not even funny now. You're just doing that so the audience kind of giggles, kind of uncomfortably. That's not funny. You don't have to be that way if you're funny. But yeah, the world is so woke that everybody's walking around on landmines all the time, and it's changed everything, I think.
How worried are the Las Vegas casinos that California is going to vote to legalize sports betting? Because that is likely to end up on our ballot in the next election. And it's going to be the mother of all ballot initiatives because there's so much money at stake, where the Indian casinos will be on one side, the Las Vegas casinos will be on the other side. And that is one thing that Las Vegas has a monopoly on still, because we cannot bet on sports at the Indian casinos here. But if we're able to do it on our phones or at the Indian casinos or however they write it into the ballot initiative and we pass it, that's going to take a huge chunk of business away from Las Vegas.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're concerned, but I will say one thing. We have some of the best, the sports books in the world here. And there's nothing like, if you're into that, going into a sports book, going to Circa, going to Westgate, which has been there forever, and watching the game on multiple screens, and the whole atmosphere is something you cannot replace by typing something in your phone. So I think there will always be a need for Vegas because Super Bowl, whatever it might be, people are going to want to come and experience it and not sit there on their phone. But, certainly it'll take some business away from Vegas, but I don't know how much. I really don't, because, they're walking around saying, the beaches are crowded and everyone's having a great time. That's what they're saying. These executives, they are in complete denial about what's happening. You know why? Because they don't talk to the locals who don't go there anymore. Now they're running all these specials for locals and things like that, and free parking till the end of summer or whatever. I mean, we locals are insulted by the nonsense because this is what happened in 2008, 2009. Suddenly, when everything drops, hey, locals, and we're saying to ourselves, and you are? No, don't call me now, because here's the thing: the local places, and you've been to them, you know how great they are. The local places are doing bang up business. They're fine. People treat them well there. They know their names. They're not nickeling and diming them. I think all of them have free parking, and this is what the Strip has forgotten. And they've got to get back to, as you said, to what made them who they are.
When are you guys going to host a political convention? You guys are built for those things. You guys are a swing state. It boggles my mind why you haven't hosted a political convention yet.
Well, because we have hookers here, legally, and they don't. John, they don't have hookers in Dallas. I don't think you understand, my friend. This is so. So that's why they do these conventions other places because God forbid, the same nonsense that would go on anywhere else. They should do conventions here. We have 150,000 more hotel rooms. Now more than that, 150,000 plus hotel rooms. We have the best accommodations in the world. Yes, we should have the conventions here because there's tons of convention space and a lot of things for people to do besides call hookers. I mean, come on, it doesn't have to be that way. And if they were going to do that, they'd do that in Minneapolis. We all know that. So,
The difference between the hookers in Dallas and the hookers in Las Vegas is all of your hookers have their teeth.
Well, our hookers will travel if they need to. Okay, they go where the work is.
Heidi Harris, host of the Heidi Harris Show. Thank you so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Well, the weekend is almost here, and Randy, for you, vacation is almost here.
I am going to be off next week. I'm going to be celebrating my 40th birthday in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Shocker.
That has become your favorite destination.
Well, the flights are cheap and the lodging is free for me.
And you don't have to pay for parking like you do in Las Vegas.
No, in fact, the thing about Santa Fe is you can walk everywhere, including from bar to bar to bar.
Just no video poker at the bar.
No, but if I was really craving that, there is a tribal casino just out of town.
Well, there you go. Everything you need in one place.